Greetings, y'all. I hope everyone had a wonderful week. It has been an amazing week thus far. We are back in business after dealing with some tech issues and getting some stuff sorted out. But welcome to another great episode of Mason-Dixon Podcast, where we are taking everything back. The monuments, the narratives, everything about Dixie, and we are proud to be sons of Dixie. And for those females watching, I'm sure y'all are proud to be daughters of Dixie. Joining me today is my buddy John, and I am cousin Vinny from the New Jersey Flaggers. All right,
thanks for having me on tonight, Vinny.
You are one of our regulars, my friend. It is an honor to have you on, and want to just remind our viewers that the views and opinions expressed here on Mason-Dixon Podcast and on MAD are our own and just our own views. They do not represent the views and opinions of any other person, group, or organization. Remember that stars help us put up statues. So for those of y'all watching on our Facebook, please like this video, share this video out there, and send us some stars so we can continue to put new memorials up. If y'all are watching on X, please donate to our Monuments Across Dixie link there. We are selling replicas of the memorial that was removed in Charlottesville of General Lee. And that's another great fundraising thing we have for y'all. So how is everyone doing today? I know we got some of our regulars coming on, and hopefully I'll get to see some of our great ladies that join us in the chat on Facebook. How are you doing, John?
Well, I'm doing fairly well, Vinny. And, there's something that happened this week. I think it happened on a Tuesday. I'm just having trouble remembering. Everybody's been talking about it. It wasn't the squirrel, was it? No, but that was terrible. Let's see. It was election. That's right. People were having a major discussion on Tuesday about the theological topic of election. Oh no, it was the other election. That's right. The presidential election. That's right. So that's really what's been going on this week, Vinny. And that's kind of got me smiling,
Too much, John. You are, y'all. If y'all were ever a fly in the wall when John and I either hang out or we're on the phone, we joke so much. And this gentleman right here has made me probably fall over laughing on days where I was ready to break down. He's a natural comedian. But we did have, I would say, a decently good result, because the one thing that we were talking about for Defend Arlington, because this is a great segue into that. So with Arlington, a lot of y'all were asking, what could be done? Is there anything that could be done at the political level? And one thing, I would always say is okay, number one, make an informed choice as a voter. Know your candidates, because there were some candidates on the right that were against the monument. An example was, I know Tom Kaine, dead against it. So was Chris Smith. Mr. Roberts in Alabama, not for it. So there was a lot of people in Dixie and outside of Dixie that were on the right, and they voted to remove the memorial, even though they could have voted with the majority that said, let's keep the memorial up. So to my knowledge, we had some of the bad ones lose, and we had a lot of better people maintain their office position. So we potentially have the House, we potentially have the Senate. The big thing that we mentioned for Arlington, because there was many different avenues, I guess y'all could say, about how that memorial could go back up. And the one avenue was, if Trump gets back in office, it really would be the best case scenario, because he could do an executive order and order Arlington back. And I don't know if you saw that, John, but I think it was one of his rallies. I think it was in Madison Square Garden. They played Dixie.
They did.
And it caused a massive meltdown on left-wing media. MSNBC had a meltdown over it, a beautiful song. And I know, I'm glad, because it's little things like that we've been advocating for the longest time, that, hey, we should start playing Dixie to these rallies. We should start doing that. We did that in New Jersey. And I remember when I was at a Lincoln dinner, I portrayed Colonel Lewis, a proud Confederate from Virginia, and educated people on our history. I had them play Dixie as part of one of the songs, because the guy was a talented piano player and all that, and he did a phenomenal job, and the audience absolutely loved it. So he did the Confederate Dixie, he did the Union Dixie, he did all the different songs of the war between the states. And that was good, because it got people's feet wet with our culture. So that was something that I loved. And he also praised General Lee in detail, which was something that really motivated the South, because for many years we were feeling as Southerners, we've been left out of the entire equation. We don't have any more of the good Southern Democrats. We're lucky on a good day if we have some of the people on the right. I found a lot of great like libertarians because New Jersey and Delaware and Maryland are odd in that in those 3 states, all of the libertarians I've talked to tend to be a lot more for heritage, more receptive to what we have to hear, and really that statesman ideology. Where like Maryland, for example, had Governor Hogan. Now he was running for office. I don't think he won. But
no, he did not.
Thank goodness. Yeah, because he was really anti-memorial, anti-our heritage. So that was something that we would advocate for. And I was never telling people how to vote. I'd say, do your best choice. But here are the candidates that were good, and here are the candidates that were not so good. And Defend Arlington did a great job on that too. Exactly. Oh my goodness, Brandon Lloyd, how are you, my friend? He says, think locally, act locally. State and county voting has far more influence on daily life than federal. Yes, and this is something that we don't stress enough. Is that, you know, North Carolina, where my buddy Cameron couldn't join us tonight, but passing along some stuff that he told me, North Carolina had some really bad news. They didn't have a good result with the governor, lieutenant governor, and the attorney general, all very bad in North Carolina. I want to say that at the state level, they still have some kind of control at the state government that can help buffer that. But North Carolina needs all the help that they can get because some people didn't know any better and they would vote for one person and forget everybody else or not be mindful of that. So that was something that definitely needs to be, looked for in the future if we want to keep North Carolina a really good state and make it even better. Because that's been more of our mission on here is making Dixie great again, which is bringing our culture back to the forefront, bringing our flags out, stop being ashamed of our flags. And that's something that I preach all the time. That was something when I do a memorial service, we are deep in enemy territory. And I tell people, show up there however you see fit. I don't believe in the dress code stuff. I don't have none of that. As long as you're there, that's all that matters. If you're a few minutes late, fine. You came there to honor our men in gray. That's what matters. Bring your flags out. Put your flags out. Something that I've always been a big, messenger in. How did y'all do in your state, John?
Well, Michigan went weird. So, as everybody probably knows, Michigan did vote for President Trump by and large. Of course, I'm in the same county as the city of Detroit, and that dominates the elections in this state, along with just a couple other slightly smaller but still major cities. Unfortunately, we did not get good results as far as our senator is concerned, or our representatives to the United States House of Representatives. We also didn't get good results in our state Supreme Court. Both of the extreme leftists were elected to the Supreme Court that were on the ballot. And even for my state legislature, things didn't go very well. What I find it to be fascinating with Michigan is I think you have some of these leftist issues and some of these cultural issues that are still dominating the state politics. And one thing that President Trump was able to do in his first term of office by getting the reversal of Roe v. Wade, putting that back in the hands of the states, made that a non-issue at the national level. So as hard as Kamala Harris tried to make the national election about abortion, she couldn't. The people saw right through it. They realized that it's at the state level now. And I don't think that the majority of people want it to go back to the federal level. So that's why I think you saw Trump do so well nationally and in states like Michigan, whereas other candidates in those states who you would think if they're voting for Trump, they're going to vote for the other Republicans, they did not. And I think it largely hinges on that abortion issue.
Exactly. And like, for example, New Jersey, and people are it's so interesting how misinformed people are on the states' rights thing. I know that I almost said president, but it's Commander Donnie Kennedy. He has a great profile on there who actually will give some good links, and it's interesting to see that because people need to be educated on states' rights and all this, and that's exactly what that was. It allowed the states to decide: do we want this in our state? If so, how is it defined? Which is exactly how everything should be. A federal all allowed, must be allowed, or a federal ban is something that's not constitutional. Whatever California wants to do, they can go and do it in California, in which case they do it up to birth. Now, what people also saw right through was the lies that CNN told. An ectopic pregnancy is, when the baby unfortunately is passed on. That's not an abortion. That's a medical procedure that is performed in all 50 states. That's all done there. So when they have these cases of the person getting very sick, those cases show that person didn't follow up on the medical care they should have at the doctor or for whatever reason, and they got sick for that, not because it was banned in the state. And that was something that was, tried to being manipulated by CNN, but people saw right through it. So another important thing, and I liked how you touch on culture, is what's been going on overseas, that conflict, big thing, because if you look at Minnesota, Michigan especially, and Wisconsin especially, even New Jersey, there are huge Muslim populations there. And they had vowed that, hey, we're going to abstain, meaning that they were not going to vote for Kamala. They were not going to vote for Trump. They were going to completely abstain. So that was another source of votes that were lost from the abstinence on that. And I also know quite a few Muslims that are decently very conservative, and they voted for Trump on a lot of things. So that was something I noticed as well in my state. For example, we have a very big medical freedom community. And in our state, we have Christians, Catholics, Muslims, and Jews that all have a religious obligation to utilize a religious exemption for the jabs. And that was something that was cited, is that every religion has a belief against, and therefore we need the right to choose. So I know for a fact that that was also something that a lot of them considered after, especially 2020, what went down with all that. So that could have been something that people saw right through, because I've known people that were on the left, or at the very least left-leaning, that switched over to libertarian, loved JFK Jr., really liked his ideology, and said, okay, we want to go with him. So that was something that definitely played a role, JFK Jr. aligning with Trump, and JFK even praised our monuments.
That's correct. That's absolutely right. You brought up the Muslims, and what I thought was so fascinating, Trump made a concerted effort here in the state of Michigan to court the Muslim vote, and it paid off. The results have come in here in our state that Donald Trump won the city of Dearborn, which, if you're not familiar with Dearborn, Michigan, it's got, I think they say, the highest concentration of Arab Americans in the world of any city outside of the Middle East. I know the Islamic Center of America is located in Dearborn. I mean, it's huge. And also the nearby city of Hamtramck as well. The mayor of Hamtramck, Michigan, endorsed Donald Trump for president. So at least in the state of Michigan, the Muslim vote went to President Trump.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And I've known friends too. And this is what's interesting, because I'm hoping we're going to see more of this. I've had friends in New Jersey that they voted for Trump. I've had those that were black and those that were Muslim, and both of them denounced the NAACP for being divisive and CARE. So it's good to see more of that people are waking up to what's going on with these organizations like CARE. CARE attacked the memorial on, mind you, how does this memorial in Arlington have anything to do with being offensive to Muslim Americans? There's nothing on there that is offensive on this memorial, and CARE came after it. It was like, y'all have so many other things you could focus on. Maybe how the left is attacking you with certain things, but of course, we know that CARE is mostly those college students with blue hair, and they got them nose rings, who running behind a lot of that. And I know another interesting thing that I found out with the election, before I forget, the good news to report to y'all is I reported that there was a gentleman who was running for office. His name was David Winkler. He was anti-Confederate, pro-NAACP. He somehow claims to have some relation to Martin Luther King Jr. And, he Pinocchio. You'll find holes or half-truths in just about everything he says. He tried to run for governor in New Jersey. He attacked our heritage. He lied about me on record, accused me of being here illegally. And this was something that like I called out, and a lot of conservatives in New Jersey said, we don't want you running. You're like, dude, that's dishonest. He just Pinocchio. And when he was called out, he completely hid and he completely tried to change narrative. He then went to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is not too far from where the SCV headquarters is. I think he realized that, people knew about what he did in Jersey and being anti-Confederate, tried to run for office there, decided not to, went missing for a little bit, showed up in Pennsylvania, and he says, we're going to take back Pennsylvania. Well, not only did he overwhelmingly lose this time, however, he really lost because we made it obvious. He did not care for our monuments. He did not care for our history, and he outright insulted our ancestors. There are a lot of people in the Philadelphia area and where he was running that have connections to the South and have Southern heritage. They were livid, and there was a lot of Republicans that said, we're voting for Trump. We are not voting for him. We're abstaining. That way, Madeline Dean won the election. And I consider that a win because I would rather have her in office because we know where she stands versus him, who is even more lethal. And he even attacked Trump on several things. And he was saying, we need to support the NAACP. He promoted the Juneteenth narrative. Didn't care once about our memorials. And the way he would virtue signal, he said on record that he is a biracial black man. And I said, well, are you biracial or are you a black man? Because that's two totally different statements right there grammatically. Also doesn't know grammar. And then he claimed to be Hispanic. So I'm Latino. And then he said, well, I'm Latino too. Well, are we changing the narrative here? Like, are you going to like pull like what Kamala did? We're changing her accent, changing all that.
Well, he's playing out of the Kamala Harris playbook.
Yes, he is.
I mean, that was her thing. And that is the left, right? They are all about identity politics. And here you have Trump, and he's leading this Republican Party where they're saying, hey, we want Muslims and Arabs to vote for us. We want Jews to vote for us. We want whites. We want blacks. We want Latinos. We want men. We want women. We want everybody. And so all we want is to make America great again for all citizens of the United States, regardless of your race, your color, your religion, your ethnic background, any of that stuff. He wants to make the country great again for all of us. And that's been his message since day one. I think that the thing that helped President Trump probably bigger than anything was his willingness to embrace alternative forms of media. The left continually played around with MSNBC and CNN and some of these other leftist media types. And, obviously the right, the more to the right side media groups like Fox News, they sort of give lip service to President Trump, but they don't really stand behind him and support him. It's like they want him to get into office and then they want to use him after he gets into office. And as we saw in the last time when he was president, you don't use Donald Trump.
No.
He's not somebody, he's not a puppet for anybody.
And what's interesting too is that I love the point you just mentioned on Fox News, because let's quickly mention that with Arlington, Tucker Carlson was the only commentator, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, but the only commentator on Fox News that even talked about Arlington, and he did so because he cared. However, Tucker's program was on very late at night, usually around 11 to 12 or sometimes 1, depending on y'all's time zones. And most working Americans are asleep, and it's rare to even, so I would have to put it on record, watch it in the morning before I would go to work. And then you had, like, Greg Gutfield was good. The problem is the majority on Fox were just very like blah or didn't care at all to mention it. And, the one shows on Fox that were even worth it was Tucker. They got rid of him. But around that time, CNN got rid of Don Lemon, so that was good. And they also had Greg Gutfield. He was good. I know they came after Judge Pirro. She was really good. And the Five. I used to watch the Five until Kennedy. She just went nuts, and she's just been cranky lately and bitter. I don't know what got in her, but watching their interactions was something else.
Yeah, she's been hanging out with Juan Williams too long.
And Geraldo Rivera has been still having meltdowns since being fired.
Right. Excuse me.
So,
but going back to the alternative media, I mean, Trump did so many podcasts and YouTube shows and stuff like that. I mean, he went on everybody from Joe Rogan, and who's the goodness, I can't even remember the guy's name. They always use 3 letters to say the show, but it's like his initials. I can't. But anyway, and he's got a huge podcast. And then he was even on a podcast with the wrestler, The Undertaker. He did an hour with The Undertaker. And that's where Barron Trump actually played a huge role in advising his dad, saying, hey, Dad, this is a way that you can talk to people that nobody else is getting out and talking to the voters through this medium. And look, Joe Rogan, his show reaches how many million people? Huge, absolutely huge. Meanwhile, Kamala refused to participate. And when she did accept the idea of participating, it had to be on her terms. Well, then you have to come to me, Joe Rogan. We can only talk for an hour, blah, blah, blah. And Joe's like, look, you come to me where I'm at, and I want to have a serious conversation, a real conversation, and get to know you so that the people who are watching get to know you as a person and not just as a soundbite. Trump went for 3 hours on that podcast. When was the last time you saw a serious sit down with any politician for 3 hours? I don't think it's ever been done before.
Isn't it? To my knowledge, never.
Most of them are too afraid to open themselves up that way. They want to get on. They want to dictate the terms of the conversation. We'll talk about this, and this, but you can't mention X, you can't mention Y, and you can't mention Z. Well, that was not the case with Joe Rogan. Everything was on the table, and Trump went on there and killed it. And look, there's people who out there who don't know me personally who will say, well, this guy's just a Trumper. He's always been a Trumper. Let me tell you, in 2016, Trump was not my candidate in the Republican primaries. And 2 weeks before that election, I did not want to vote for Donald Trump for president. But the alternative, of Hillary Clinton becoming president scared me so bad that I was willing to vote for somebody I did not like at all. But it was that 4 years that Donald Trump was in office. He impressed me. He did enough good. Now, was he perfect as president? No. Oh, no. Was every decision he made something that I agreed with? No. But enough of what he did was good that I was like, absolutely, I'm voting for him in 2020. Then 2020 rolls around. We've got the pandemic. And we've had 4 years of hate Trump on all of our television screens. Okay, now I'm not wanting to do an episode on whether or not we consider the election of 2020 to be legitimate or what. That's a huge conversation. But I will say this: after that election was over and the result that happened, legitimate or not. The attacks on Trump that happened over the last 4 years, from January of 21 until now, that is what got Donald Trump elected president, along with his positions and policies. But in a great measure, the people were sick of seeing him constantly attacked, constantly lied about. They would watch for themselves with their own eyes what happened on TV. They know good and well that Trump did not incite any kind of a riot or insurrection or anything like that on January 6th. They also know that it's pretty much BS to even call it an insurrection. They make a mountain out of this little molehill of what happened. And so, Corey, good to have you, man. Let me finish my thought real quick. So they make this mountain out of this molehill. Then they start with the lawfare, right? And it's prosecution after prosecution. And then here's Donald Trump getting carted off and arrested and mugshot and everything like that. And the people are just like, this is ridiculous. Then we get to this year, and they actually tried to kill the man. Yeah. Darn near succeeded in murdering him. Well, once that was almost successful, but yes, multiple assassination attempts were made on this man. And then we get down to the home stretch, and it's constantly, oh, Donald Trump is a dictator. He's Hitler. If we do this, some people are going into chains, and wives will go back to being handmaidens, and on and on. I mean, they melted down at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
There was literally, the American people were tired.
Yes.
Of it.
They were burnt out.
Plain and simple. They were tired of it.
Without doubt, yes. And I'm just going to say that leftist tears plus Confederate coffee equals a special kind of delicious, y'all.
The best company around.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning, I start off right with Confederate coffee. It is strong stuff, though, so a little goes a long way.
Oh, yes.
So you've been having a good week too, huh,
not
Corey?
Just any water, and not just any water either. Leftist tears.
And isn't it funny how just 10 days ago, Trump is Hitler, Trump is the worst, all of his followers are Nazis, and we're human garbage. And now, 3 days after the election, Chuck Schumer says, we need to come together in a spirit of bipartisanship.
Yeah, how convenient.
And Kamala and Biden have to call and concede the race and congratulate who they call Hitler.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes. And the fact that she didn't even address them on the night she lost. She had to.
Yes.
They did it just.
She just ran away.
I can't remember if it was the day after or the afternoon after.
Yep.
Nancy Pelosi, even though that was a look. And then she came after Biden. She goes, he should have resigned earlier. Oh, she let him have it. And let me just add this in there too, because another thing I think that played a role in this too was we saw with the debate, even though Trump had everything stacked up against him in that Biden debate, we saw how bad his cognition was. It was not good. It was sad, and it really made me feel bad for the guy because they manipulated a guy who he's cognitively not there. And his wife was the one who, she's in the limelight. She's getting all this publicity. She's getting magazine interviews and all this great way of getting out there. So she knows how to use her husband to get what she wants. So she is thirsty in that sense. By him stepping down, that limelight gets yanked from her. And I know that this sometimes happens with ladies. Ladies use covert aggression. It is not overt. Like, let's say we're all mad at each other. We yell at each other. We might cuss and get rough. Females take it to a whole new level that is more calculating, and it can be also more detrimental. And I guarantee there was a lot of that behind the scenes, because you hear horror stories of Kamala's staff that don't like her, that they said, okay, she was difficult, she was demanding, she was a nightmare to work with. And then you also hear that there might have been some contention between Jill and her, because Jill wants things her way, and Cam is going, no, you're not getting it. Nope. So I think that really worked in our favor, because you didn't really see Jill doing as much for her, like for, let's say, if it was her husband or something.
Yeah, and how she tried to handle the potential interview between her and Joe Rogan. I mean, that was just arrogance right there, pure arrogance. And because, I mean, you're 1 hour interview, you're coming to me, I'm not coming to you, and pre-scripted questions. And that's got to tell you something if you want pre-scripted questions.
Absolutely. Going back to Uncle Joe. Did you guys watch the speech that he made 2 days after the election to congratulate President Trump? That was the most coherent and happy that I have seen that man in over a year. I mean, he actually seemed lucid with it. Honestly, I think he's just a lot happier having the pressure off.
I agree. He doesn't have the pressure. His job is over. He can retire, because he went through a lot. And, when you look at his record, he actually, you look at Joe Biden, he thanked the UDC for what they did and all the memorials. And he pretty much said they're just a harmless group of ladies. So he did do some positive, even though towards the end, if it was more negative with his terms with Obama and all that. But if you look at where he came from in Delaware is a very complicated state, because they're more agriculture. And here's an example. It was a female. The first female governor of Delaware was a Democrat, Ruth Ann Minner. wonderful lady. And she never, to my knowledge, denounced our Confederate heritage. And she stood by Biden when he was with Obama. I'm not 100% sure if she still stood by him when he ran again, but she seemed like she was more quiet then. She never denounced our monument, never denounced the holiday, and she signed into law Delaware's Confederate History and Heritage Week. And she allowed that memorial, and she was always a proud supporter of that because that was her roots. Miss Lisa says, Corey, you the chair. It looks like a massive shoulder. It does.
It does. It really does. And, yeah. The theme
and
in my
please follow Miss Lisa. She's amazing. She does great content, and she's always a huge fighter for the cause. And thanks for all the hard work, Lisa.
Yeah, it really does look like I have massive shoulders. But if you look in my living room, the central theme is well, my favorite color is blue, like deep blue. Ironically, not Yankee blue, but sapphire blue, like you'd see on my birthstone.
Yes.
And across and on the other side of my wall, I have a huge print of the CSS Arkansas breaking through the blockade of Vicksburg, and another print of the 1st and 15th Consolidated Arkansas.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking for this big wall space, for something for this big wall space above my chair and my furniture. And I'm torn. I thought about just getting one big print, or get how some people take one print and break them in 3s or 4s. I thought about getting one of those, but I haven't found one that I found preferential to.
Yes.
Oh, I have huge flags in my office. Usually I'm in my office with my monitor here, but I've been clearing out my office and the house, trying to get rid of some stuff, taking stuff to the Salvation Army junk shops, and making room for my reenactment stuff.
Did either of you fellas happen to stay up all night and watch the election get called on CNN, MSNBC?
I tried to get as far as almost midnight, and then because I literally had pillows and such and blankets on my couch here, and I was just like, yeah, I gotta work the next morning. And from the way it's looking, he's gonna win. And I went to sleep right then and there, and woke up to a 20-pound orange cat on my chest.
Well, about a month ago, I went ahead and I put in for a paid day off on Wednesday, so I could stay up all night and watch the stuff come in. And it was like 5:30 in the morning before CNN and MSNBC called the election for Trump. And it was so funny to watch the MSNBC coverage, because they're like, and we have a breaking development. Wisconsin has been called, and now we know that Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a downer for them.
Yes. I mean, he was taking the lead the whole time. And because, I mean, you would see him in the hundreds, and she'd be like 92 or something.
Yeah, the CNN really held off. They held off a while on it, and it was almost like a pause. And I call that like a good drinking social hour they tried to have. I was on the phone with Jude, and I'm like, uh-oh. And let me just preface this, y'all. I have family members that are very much like woke, to the point where, and it's always funny how this works. I am not the kind of person, in my friends, because I have friends that are very much left-wing, but they're not like as radical as some of the ones you see. A lot of them love our heritage. I'm not the kind that gloats or brings things up, or I've had some of them do it to me, where I've had family members, in 2020, they would start up and I'd say, oh, interesting. And I would keep it civil and respectful because I love them, and, but when this happened, I knew better, because number one, that's not who I am as a Christian, to gloat and say, oh yeah, we won, yada, yada, yada. Instead, I had one family member I was really worried about, and I gave 2 days for like a calm down. And then I said, hey, how are you? Doing well? Okay, all good. And I knew that they were still kind of ticked. I'm like, ooh, Nothing like some of these, and I really think a lot of the TikTok ones are fake because it gets views, but some of them are really good.
Yes.
If that, I would hope they're fake. The women scream and men screaming in the car. I've seen one guy, he was screaming at the camera like, ah,
Oh, I saw a
ah,
chick. I saw a
ah.
chick doing that in her car too, and and kind of like what Ben Shapiro and some of the guys say, like, is this truly real, or do you just set up your camera phone in your car and just have at it? Because
I pray it's fake because I'll tell you this as an educator, because I taught adult education. And I've had students just for the heck of it do a TikTok challenge to see who could scream the loudest in the stairwell where it would echo. So I'm thinking there was an emergency and I come running out and I'm like, what? You're filming yourself screaming for view? Like, what the heck does that accomplish? It's been challenges before. People think it's funny. So I think that it might be like a challenge. There are cases I have seen where people are really dramatic, like that JoJo from Jers. If anyone knows on X, she's on there. Get this, y'all. I won't say the restaurant out of respect, but there was a really good restaurant that would allow our SCV camps to meet there in Jersey, as well as our flaggers group to have our Lee Jackson stuff there. And and what I love about this restaurant is that it allows they allow anybody who's willing to pay for a space can get the space, because that's true freedom of speech, which is great because, okay, you want to have something for left-wing stuff, go ahead and have it. We don't agree with it, but hey, you're paying for the space. Go ahead. We'll treat you great. We'll give you good deals on it. And they believe in free speech. Well, the media tried to manipulate this, and the restaurant messaged them and said, hey, no, you need to fix this and say that we do not agree with them. We allowed them because we believe in everyone having a voice to voice their opinions. We're not communist China. And this was a giant left-wing event. It tried to get all these left-wing people, and it was in Bridgewater, New Jersey. Well, that area, it's a hike to get to for a lot of us, but it's worth it because it's up there in North Jersey. And the town Bridgewater is very much red. It is very much conservative. Now, all of these Democrats that were there, they were trying to get young people out to vote. I knew several people that were there that worked there, and they said that, ready for this? The average age was about 57, roughly. Very few people were under what they thought the age of 25 would be, if that. Maybe 4 of them. They had some of these famous Twitter people come in. They're like JoJo from Jers. Not only was she roaring drunk at the restaurant, she was very belligerent to staff and very rude and kind of like holier than thou. So how she acts online, where she seems to be like really caring, oh no, pounding shots, beer, the whole 9 yards, very belligerent to the staff, very nasty. And they had, I think, Sean Spicer from the NJEA there. All it was Marxists getting together to get really drunk and to say how much they hate Trump and how much they want to ban guns and this and that. And that was the entire gist of their entire event there. And it was a horrible turnout. Not many came out. They also didn't know that restaurant took their money and that they put down, and they donated some of it to Trump's campaign. They were funding Trump by doing the event there.
And how surprised were y'all about all the Amish turnout in Pennsylvania to vote?
I
Incredible.
know.
Yeah, like if you have the Amish who practically limit themselves of contact and association and participation in the English world, then that's got to tell you something is bad. And the story I got was that the Democratic elected officials were really encroaching on these organic farmers that were in Pennsylvania, messing with the Amish, and they did not like that at all. And with Scott working, I was expecting that.
Oh,
Yes.
Scott Pressler. Yeah, because he does a lot of the election thing. And Scott is good in the sense that he kind of, gets the word out there. The one thing I will respectfully say with Scott is that I would try to tell all the time. I try to tell him, some of these candidates you cannot just vote straight right for because they're awful. Like David Winkler. Do we want to elect somebody who he said that he wanted to remove memorials at Gettysburg? He attacked our heritage, and he was running for a Republican while supporting the NAACP. So that was a huge problem.
And Chris Murphy is bad too. And
That's
he
right.
didn't I don't think he got voted out either, did he?
I'm going to check on that.
I can say that here in Michigan, unfortunately, they reelected John James, a Republican who hates our heritage, absolutely despises us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and our state elections, New Jersey is SOL because in New Jersey, which means sugar out of luck. We are sugar out of luck because one of the big things with New Jersey and all that is we don't have the best candidates. We have a lot of Republicans that might be more on the left, and we have a few good Republicans like Phil Rizzo, wonderful man. Was an honor to be, helping out in this campaign where I could. He is a great guy, and he really was one of the. If we had him for governor, great. We also had Hirsch Singh, great guy too. He supported our heritage, and he even gave a thing. And I wish there was better coordination like that because the problem was we would have a splitting of the vote. And when Rizzo tried to run for a Senate, I believe it was, or something like that, or sorry, no, Congress. It was Congress. You had Tom Kaine that got a fraction of the votes. You had all these other people that ran up against him, and they stole the votes from him. And it was really interesting. And all that. And Facebook user says, exactly, and I don't know why Trump was all about having a rally in Wildwood in which I went to support Van Drew. And Van Drew, giving credit where it's due, he actually switched and he started supporting Arlington after he realized that, okay, we have got to support the heritage. Because we made it very clear that, hey, you're in office, we support you, but we need to make sure that you support the memorial.
Yeah. And
Morristown GOP are
glad to see
establishment rhinos and former Democrats. Yes, it is because Morristown,
a good chunk of these guys that you described were quite literally establishment rhinos, and I was not surprised to see that Liz Cheney to work against Trump on side of Kamala Harris. I mean these. That's the ultimate.
We have got a huge war there that's been going on ever since Trump showed up on the scene between, I guess, what you would call, or what the mainstream media would call, the MAGA Republicans versus the neocons. Mm-hmm. And so we've said for a long time, and a lot of people have said for a long time, how the left and the right are basically two sides of the same coin. That's the neocon right. That's the same side, same coin with the Democrat Party or the leftists. They all want big government control. It's just they want to fight over who's got the control.
Yes.
So you've got that, and the Cheneys are as neocon as they can possibly be.
Yes.
Same with the Bushes.
You know how they got the power, do you? Like, it's because they were not implicated anyway with Watergate, and Dick Cheney used that as a stepping stone, and then obviously during the Reagan era, a lot of the neocons that we know today took the opportunity to jump ranks.
So I see we've got a question here that I'm going to answer real quick. Lisa, I am a Southerner born in economic exile, unfortunately, in the state of Michigan. So I'm in the Metro Detroit area, but my family is all from the South. My ancestors fought for the Confederacy, and God willing, one day I'm going to be able to take my family back to Kentucky. Unfortunately, the money just hasn't been able to make it happen yet. But Dad and Mom came up here for work in the 60s, and I was born in the 80s. So that's why I'm all the way up here.
And can I give a birthday
shout out? And Facebook user is Frankie. And
Frankie's in New Jersey. I think Frankie's in Facebook jail because when I would get put in Facebook jail, I wasn't able to comment, and it comes up as Facebook user. So I'm sorry, Frankie. But I think you're in Facebook jail.
Yeah, it looks like it. But not a lot going on. Not a lot going on to speak of, Frankie, except just me trying to hopefully get my teaching license and hopefully look for a different job.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You're gonna be great at it.
Yeah, because unfortunately my dream job with the museums no longer exists. It's going by the way of the dodo. And
museum studies is not easy, and I'll tell you this, y'all. Museums are an area that we haven't had the funding. Number one, we've had a woke takeover, And on top of all that, we've seen museum just go. And that's what I want to do, is definitely do a topic on that for another night, because I have articles that I wanted to bring up and mention. Some good news actually about museums.
Yes, because unfortunately we lost the Confederate Museum at Fort Worth, and its last day was Halloween.
I know.
And
that was not good. Trick or treat. That was a major trick. That was awful.
Yes. And from what I saw from one of my friends who went while it was still there, that they had I believe they had an intact Little Rock frock coat there, an Arkansas Little Rock. And y'all probably have seen the reproduction one that I just bought, and that's no longer being made, and so it's definitely one of a kind. But the originals from the war was definitely one of a kind, and the reproductions of today was definitely one of a kind.
Look into Little Drummer Boy Museum in Andersonville. They have a fab collection and need support. Thank you, Miss Lisa.
Yes.
There are definitely great museums that are out there, and we are going to have to support them if they're going to remain active and out there for us to go to.
Yeah. I need to go to the one in New Orleans.
That was the one you've got to see. And next time you're in there, I do have a pass I think you can use, because I have a membership with them. And I've been telling people, get a membership for only $25 a year. It is not that much, because that memorial hall, it was built by our soldiers. That's how historic it is. When we talk about like what the best Confederate museum is, by virtue and by collection, it is Memorial Hall in New Orleans. They have the most amount of flags, the most amount of relics, and they have rotating exhibits. They have the crown of thorns that was given by the Pope to support Jefferson Davis. They have one of the chairs. They have a collection that is just unheard of. And a lot of it is not even on display, but they rotate it out. It's great for people that are into museum studies. If they go to school in New Orleans, they can go down there and get their education there and hours in there. Miss Pat is wonderful. And at some point I want to get her on here to do a tour of it and really just to talk about that museum. We have the National Confederate Museum in Elm Springs, another good museum in Tennessee to go to as well. Call and make sure it's open. That's something that, same with New Orleans. New Orleans might have different hours. Always do that, because I've been all across the board at different museums. I'll think it'll be open. I don't call and then it's not. Virginia has the Confederate Shop, which I always call a little museum because they have good stuff in there.
Yes.
The Stonewall Jackson headquarters in Winchester is, in my own opinion, the best museum to see in Virginia. It is wonderful, and you learn so much about Jackson and Mary Tyler Moore.
I gotta give a shout out to the one that's run by the SCV in oh my goodness, what town in South Carolina is that? What's
Greenville.
That? Yeah, Greenville.
Yes.
The museum, Confederate Museum in Greenville, South Carolina, is absolutely fantastic. It's literally jam-packed, wall to wall. And I'm going to say this now. I don't want to speak out of turn if this is something that they don't normally do, but I went there when we went down for the reunion back in July, and they didn't seem to make a difference in who was there. They have artifacts that they will actually let you handle. I handled some original artifact. Now look, if it belonged to Robert E. Lee or John Hunt Morgan, they're not going to put it in your hand. But they have a surplus of knives and some guns. They don't have a provenance that goes back to a famous person per se. But seriously, the most important Confederate soldier was the private. Because without the private soldier, we wouldn't have won any battles. Yes. So, and those items, to actually be able to handle a firearm, a blade that actually was in the hands of a soldier, and you can feel what it was like, how heavy it was, what it was like in the hand. I mean, to touch history like that is incredible. Yes. And then, of course, there's the incredible museum that's run by the United Daughters of the Confederacy in Charleston, Market Hall Museum.
Yeah, that one is a must-see.
Awesome facility.
Miss Jill does a fantastic job being their docent, and even now, because it is a museum, the UDC headquarters, I'm calling up, getting a tour in with Miss Teresa. They do such a fantastic job, these ladies at this building. I could not be any more grateful. Everything is beautifully curated. Some of the items in the Texas Museum, which were owned by the UDC, were given as a great, gracious donation by the Texas Division UDC to the National, and it's gorgeous. That room, the Great Hall, and Miss Teresa's tours, let me just say, are phenomenal. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you see a flag in that building, the hall of the Great Hall with the flags, there's a flag for Mexico and a flag for France. I'm just going to say that is in reference to where there used to be a chapter of a UDC. Every state that had a chapter is represented in there. And you could just feel that, like, wow, the UDC headquarters is the only, to put this in perspective, place in Richmond that is flying a Confederate flag, First National, and the only place that is proud of their true and real history and tells the truth. That should be that speaks volumes as it is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And also I probably have mentioned this on my page a while back and some other places. The court date for our monument down at the Capitol Guards monument down in Little Rock has been pushed again, and we have yet to hear about another date for a court case. It's been pushed multiple times already, and I don't know if that's purposeful or what, to get us to just slow the process, get us to back down or what. But we have a good lawyer on the case, and hopefully we'll get the wheels turning on either putting it back in its original spot, or at least back in our possession, because putting it in storage is just beyond disrespectful, and as far as I'm concerned, it's theft.
Absolutely.
Because the reason we had that monument at that particular spot, from what I've read about, was the original muster spot for the 15th, for the men who make up the 15th Arkansas.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
And some of these men were Cleburne's men. And I'm partially biased here because I'm an Arkansasier, but we love Cleburne down here. And we don't think, and some of us don't think highly of Van Dorn either. I know Tennessee loves him and Mississippi loves him, but here in Arkansas, after P Ridge, he took all the men, all the equipment, and the guns, and it made General Heinemann have to start a whole new army from scratch.
Unfortunately, that happened to a lot of great generals and a lot of different places. Forrest had to do it 2 or 3 times.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, he did.
But Van Dorn leaving definitely left the door wide open for the Army of the Frontier to come through Missouri into Arkansas. Yeah, you might as well open the front door and say, "Hey, come on in."
All right, y'all. So I figured this is a good point to segue into Arlington, because we're on the topic of monuments and memorials. And this is something I want to share with y'all. Because we covered a lot of great points. And right here is a photo of what I want you all to share. So go on to Defend Arlington and find this, save it. You can screenshot it, send it out to your friends and whatnot, and visit that website. So this is in reference to the executive order. So Trump, as president, can executive order to have the monument put back in Arlington where it belongs. So order the reinstallation of Reconciliation Memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. So if you go to trumpeo.us, I think it is trumpeo.us, you will find the website there, and that will, take you to a place where you can submit that. But make it known, write to Trump, send letters that you want to have Arlington put back. And absolutely, Miss Lisa, there's a lot of people that they want to, speak up about this.
Yes, and because I've been getting emails lately saying to write to Trump and his admin order this restored and to fire and to practically fire the man who spearheaded the I can't remember what the name of the commission was.
Naming commission, and
Well,
it was
he's retired now. Ty
he retired?
Seidel.
Ty Seidel and also Miley or Millie. He was the
Mark
one that
Milley, yeah.
I was talking about what's that senator's name? I saw it on the email. Let me find it real quick. Where are you at?
And by the way, Ty Seidel, when he wrote that evil book, get this, y'all. So my one friend, if anyone attended the members only call where we sell the recording now, so y'all can purchase it from Save Southern Heritage Florida. Save Southern Heritage Florida and Defend Arlington have been helping each other out, and they, Save Southern Heritage Florida is great at getting legal stuff done. This is something all states have to do. And if y'all remember from the call with Mr. Kennedy, we had three very powerful speakers. We had three. We had Mr. Bishop, we had Mr. Kennedy, and retired Lieutenant Colonel Kennedy, and we had Kirk Lyons. And all three of them gave great advice on how we could preserve our history and heritage. And in particular, I like the point about, with calling out the wokeness, because we've seen military numbers crash in response to the naming commission, in response to Southerners saying, hey, you did this to us. We are not going to allow our young men to enlist in the military the way it is. The military needs an overhaul. And here's an example, y'all. If y'all remember West Point, they used to give out an award, they meaning the UDC, with the awards. There's only one school now that accepts military awards, and that's the Citadel. All other schools refuse the awards. And the Robert E. Lee Saber was given since around the 1930s until 2015, was given at West Point for the soldier or the cadet who had the highest scores in math. So you had to earn this. And it was a great reward to be celebrated. Well, Ty Seidel was in charge of all that. And you know what he says? We want to cut ties from the UDC. So he wrote a letter. Letter was given to them, and they sent the Saber back. So the Saber is now on display at the UDC's museum. And the plaque, there used to be a plaque that had all the names on it, was taken and thrown in the garbage, and they were only able to salvage the bottom part.
Wow.
So common human decency. If you do not want something, you return it to the sender. The fact that West Point was so cowardly and so just, evil that they didn't even want to return it to the UDC. All they had to do was put it in a box and say, hey, we don't want this. It doesn't represent us. Here you go. Here's your plaque. They trash it. I mean, really.
Disgusting.
Yeah, all they were able to recover was the bottom part that mentioned the UDC for allowing the award to be given. And it was trashed. The whole thing, the award was thrown in the trash, and it was only caught enough to remove the bottom part.
Oh.
But how would you feel if you had a family member? How would y'all feel if you had a family member who went to West Point, their name was on that, they won the sword, and that their memory is thrown in the garbage, that you actually had the military viewing your ancestor as garbage now? Your loved one could have been a grandfather, could have been an uncle, could have been a father,
great-grandfather,
who served at West Point, and now the military themselves are saying, we're just going to trash you.
Yeah, that's the ultimate disrespect to the families. And I found it too. It's Mike Rogers, the former Secretary of Defense. Oh, and I found it was on the Defend Arlington page. It's remember that Rogers didn't support Trump's veto of the naming commission created that was created by Elizabeth Warren, which if I'm reading this correct, Trump remembers that Rogers didn't support Trump's veto of the 2021 NDAA, which created Elizabeth Warren's naming commission, that resulted in the base's renaming and desecrated Arlington National Cemetery with the removal of the Reconciliation Monument.
How much do y'all know about Mike Rogers? Because I don't know if any of y'all know about the monument scam that he did in Alabama.
No. I only know that he was the former Secretary of Defense, and it seems like he might be kissing up Trump right now.
So Mike Rogers, when I tell you, so him and his daughter have both been behind removing the memorials in Alabama. They were able to have the memorial in Huntsville, Alabama removed. Mike Rogers turned his back on his heritage. So did his daughter, and they've done nothing but attack Alabama's history. And I'm gonna see if I can pull up the article. So here's, I think there's one article here, somewhere in there. Here we go. And also, here's more about what happened to it. That there was also another story. So Dale Strong was our county commissioner of a 7-person commission. Alabama passed a law in 2017 to protect monuments. Violation of illegally removing it was a fine. Strong sent a request to the state to have it removed based on a BLM NAACP protest and a riot. 20% of the request was totally false. He claimed the Mississippi flag was on it, and it was a naval insignia given by the ladies of Huntsville to the captain of the CSS. It was a naval insignia on it that was given to the ladies of Huntsville, to the captain of the CSS Huntsville, an ironclad in the Mobile Harbor. So again, they didn't know the history, but we educated them. When the state refused to give permission, he took it down in the middle of the night on October 2020 after 6 months of BLM protests and us arguing in front of the commission they wanted it gone. The memorial was to the soldiers of our county, Madison County. They illegally moved it to the city cemetery, Confederate section, where soldiers who died in the hospital were buried. The soldiers in there are not from our county. The point of the memorial is to honor those who died from the county, not that particular cemetery. There's already a memorial to them at the cemetery. So the fact that there's 2 monuments, one memorial is to honor that cemetery. The other one was to honor Madison County. Strong got a private backer to pay the fine, and this violates Alabama law, and he refuses to say who paid. We sued and hired a 4-name firm to fight for our one lawyer. And one of their lawyers died of heart failure last year. We lost because we could not raise sufficient funds to fight the case on appeal. Strong ran for Congress and lied about the memorial and other things, and he's now a 5th District of Alabama representative. So Mike Rogers also in on a lot of this, and the fact that this continues to happen, Alabama needs a complete overhaul on everything. You know, the Alabama is a beautiful state. I have a family heritage that goes to Alabama. One of my Confederate ancestors that I have proven beyond a reasonable doubt served in Alabama. And what Mike Rogers has done and all these other people have done is just beyond wrong. And this is just the idea that, okay, he's still here. He was also one of several, because what happened in 2020 was there was a secret meeting that occurred that we found out where they told they made a deal with the Democrats. You can take the memorial in Arlington, just don't do this and that. Well, Mike Rogers is willing to sell your heritage, y'all. The fact that he's willing to sell your heritage, and if y'all are from Alabama, y'all should be pretty upset right now and call for his recall. So I bet he's running scared right now because he knows that he is not doing so well.
Yeah, and I also saw on Trump's Truth Social that he's not bringing back Mike Pompeo, and he's not bringing back Nikki Haley into his administration.
Boom, shoo, out.
Good. Yeah, amen to that. Especially to the queen of cancel culture, Nikki Haley, who started this domino effect over about a decade ago.
I've got to say this when we talk about the Trump and the executive order. To me, this is one of the most important things that members of the Southern Heritage community can get behind and actually be a part and lend your voice and help try to push this into happening.
Yes.
The president has already made it clear over and over and over again that he wants the base names returned.
Yes, he did.
And so I do have some concern, because with that being a part of the naming commission and that was passed by Congress, he may have some trouble regarding using executive order to get those base names changed back. However, removing the monument from Arlington, although the naming commission recommended it, that went way outside of the purview of the naming commission that Congress actually passed. And it was a grave marker in a cemetery. which was not supposed to be touched according to the legislation that was passed. So Trump has a much better chance of getting the Arlington Monument put back via executive order than he does even changing the names of the bases back. This is something that we have to put pressure on the administration to do early on, before in the first 2 years, while he has a Republican Senate and more than likely will have a Republican House. It's got to be a top priority in the first 2 years.
Yeah, from what it looks like, we might be taking back both the House and the Senate. So,
yeah,
from what it looks like, we could be having a Republican president, a Republican Senate, and a Republican House. So, if that's the potential case, then we definitely would have a stronger chance. If Trump won't do it by executive order to put the original names back, he would have a potential chance of pushing it through Congress, having Congress have it pushed through.
A better chance, although, look, we have so many feckless Republicans, especially in the House of Representatives. I mean, I already mentioned John James here from Michigan. There's a number of others.
Tom Kaine, he's awful. My family did not vote for Tom Kaine because of how bad he was. He is no different than Tom Malinowski. He doesn't stand up for anything, and he won't take questions. So we took his face and did a meme out of it because he's like this in the elevator with his coffee. Guarantee that he was having a soy latte. He was like, nope, not answering, not doing my job. I mean, he's too cowardly to stand up and have a backbone. We've called his office multiple times, and he didn't do nothing. And, and he's just very like, no comment, no comment. Well, here's the funny thing, right? Tom Kaine's family, all Yankee, but his family has the Kaine plantation, which is now known as Liberty Hall. And he wanted to make sure that his name was not anywhere on that because Tom Kaine's family was one of the many slave-owning families of New Jersey. And then when they couldn't have slaves anymore, they enslaved the Irish.
Sounds like he has no room to talk.
Oh, I know. And speaking of which, just on that quick topic, I wanted to mention how people were melting down and all that. And you think about Congress and how things are working. This is a movement, y'all, that I absolutely support because I love this. It's called Free Pacifica. And it's on X, and it says, can we retroactively accept the secession of the Confederate States? They're the problem. And my argument with them is I want to take Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri is part of that, so is Kentucky, West Virginia, and give us part of Maryland. And if they're willing to give us Delaware and part of New Jersey, we'll take that as well.
Yeah, and even though de jure, the entire de jure, if we're going to leave the union, then we by de jure claim New Mexico, Arizona, and SoCal, but they can keep SoCal. They can keep it. They can keep it. We don't want it.
And I think it's a decent compromise because let me show y'all what their their overall plan was. I thought this was pretty darn funny because hey, it was a pretty good idea that they had. If I can pull my thing up, I should have it here somewhere. I think it's right here. Oh, they had it up here. Pre-Pacifica, and then it shows something about it was like some other states that they had on there.
Yeah, now that Trump got elected again, I wonder how long before Washington, Oregon, and California want to leave the union.
Oh, right here.
Well, look, I think that's as much as we would love to see them try, because we would support them 100%. I think it's a long shot. Look, these people know. Unfortunately, Trump's only got 4 years, and he's only got 2 years with a Republican Congress behind him. So they're going to be trying harder than ever before over the next 2 years to give him divided government in 2026 when the midterms come up, and then of course once 28 happens, I mean, and Trump's not an option anymore. Yeah, I think both sides are kind of in a quandary as to what direction the parties are going to go.
Yeah,
You know,
There
because
needs to be more.
I'm sorry, on the Republican side, you've got that eternal struggle between the MAGA Republicans and the neocons, and then over on the left, on the Democrat side, you've got this current struggle that they're undergoing right now between the ones who realize that this identity politics game that they've been playing for all this time isn't working, and then of course the far extreme left who are constantly hammering the crazy, insane woke agendas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
something like this would work out perfectly, I feel, because, hey, they can have Hawaii, they can have California, they can have Oregon, they have Washington. I think eventually what would happen out of this is that Hawaii would end up being ceded back to either whatever tribe wants it or different islands running it. Because California as a whole is like its own country as it is. Oregon and Washington, again, very different viewpoints. They can go ahead and leave. They can make their own. I support that 100%. And this is something that you'll have Republicans say, oh, no, we have to force them to be a union. No, you do not, because that is unlawful.
Nope.
Every state has the right to set whatever laws they want and do that. That is what we need. However, the fact that you have some of these Republicans saying, oh, no, California matters. We need Oregon. We need Washington. No, we don't. No. They can totally do whatever they want. Give them the land, give them the country, have them make their own flag, have them make their own country.
And another thing,
we can have Greater Dixie back together again, have a third national as our flag. Midwest can do their own thing, and then Northeast can do whatever they want. And I think that would be better potentially in the future, because I think that's probably what's going to happen peacefully, is because people realize that, we have ideology that does not align. There's a point where we can only agree to disagree so much, but we're doing our thing and you're doing your thing. And that's what's going to come down to, more or less.
And also parts of the Washington's counties, a lot of them red and want to secede from Washington State and be part of what's the state next to Washington?
Idaho.
Is it Idaho?
It's Idaho. So Oregon as well. It's the Greater Idaho movement.
Yes.
Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon are very much red and conservative. They wanted to leave Idaho because of how bad the state is.
Yeah, because I don't blame them either, because practically they're ruled by Olympia, Seattle, and Portland. That's where a good chunk of the leftist votes come from, because it's overly populated of them.
That's right.
It's kind of like with California, a good chunk of NorCal is red, for example. But
absolutely,
yes, like NorCal and parts of the Mojave are very much red areas. But
absolutely,
you got places like Seattle, San Francisco, and Sacramento and whatnot that are blue. It's always
LA.
The big cities. Yes, LA. Yes, thank you. I often forget about LA.
San Fran, LA, Sacramento.
Yeah.
Bakersfield is a very good area of California. I know that Bakersfield is decently more conservative. There are, and California has a lot of Confederate history out there. People move westward. My heart breaks, and obviously for privacy reasons, I can't name any names, but there was a great group of California people. I had a privileged honor to have a great dinner with them when I was out traveling in Virginia, and they are just fantastic people. And getting to chat with them about what's going on there in California, and they hold their own really well. So California does have a decent Confederate movement going on there, but you're in deep enemy territory. That when they started attacking our graves, this was done in Washington State first, with attacking the memorial that was in Seattle, not bothering no one. And it made it very clear that our men up there would never be respected. And that is something that, this West Coast nonsense, their culture, they can completely have. Enough with the whole, we've got to all get along together, because there's a limit that I have, and I will not break bread with evil like that. And if they want to go and do this movement, I 100% support it. I hope that it takes off. And I think we can get something actually done if we had it that way. I just want to know where they would put their capital for their country, for the Greater Pacifica.
It'd probably be a tie between Olympia and Sacramento, most likely, because California ultimately would have the stronger influence, and then you have Washington's musical culture up there, grunge and whatnot.
Yeah, that they could definitely. I think it would be. I think Sacramento is probably around where it would be. Or I know that they would not want to ruin San Francisco because whatever little history they have left there, that would just completely trash it up. So I think it would be probably Sacramento. I don't necessarily think they would have it in Los Angeles because that would back up traffic too much. So I think it would be Sacramento or somewhere in NoCal.
Yeah, and because if Pacifica here were to happen, California would definitely be the domineering influence of the four.
Yes, it would.
Because California definitely loves to throw its weight around.
Yes, it does.
Well, I almost wonder if you wouldn't have to have some sort of a break apart of California, because I almost think if Northern California is not going to have to break off from the southern part of the state.
That's an option too, because I constantly hear about, specifically NorCal, are just sick of leftist policies down south, and
that's right.
It's the policies that Newsom and other leaders that they have had over the years practically ruined greater parts of California. And I mean, you got these fires, you have rolling blackouts, and the place is just not managed well. Even their big giant lake is gone. And I mean, the farmers there are just, it's desperate down there. The farmers are just those poor farmers in California. And if some of y'all remember too, NorCal is wine country.
Yes, it is. The vineyards and California wine has value. And the problem is that, they like to tax everything to death and to regulate it. And these regulations are just killing the small vineyards that are historic because, they almost barely survive prohibition. But the loophole in there was if you were Catholic and went to a Catholic church, the vineyard can make the wine for religious purposes. It could also make it, for medicinal reasons. So when there were Confederate veterans at the Dixie Manor home, when it was in Los Angeles before it burned down, the veterans themselves were able to get alcohol and wine through that little loophole. And that was something that was so interesting. And this happened all across the country. And my own thing is, hey, if California and Pacifica, they want to secede, let them do it. Let them leave. Let them do it in peace. Make a trade agreement. Guess what, y'all? That is 4 less socialist Marxist states that are telling us what to do. And it also sets precedents that, guess what? Secession, number 1, is legal. We have been fighting this consistently since after the war between the states that we need our Southern independence. We are tired under this unlawful union that Lincoln tried to establish, and who the GOP still, for the most part, worship Lincoln. And that's something that you cannot break them out of. It is so. I've had conversations and arguments, and the GOP don't always want to take a good look in the mirror and say, "Oh wow, we were founded by a Marxist tyrant."
Yeah.
Well, you had that map up just a few minutes ago, and the one before this with the southern states seceding, and the comment they said was, "Can we just retroactively let the South secede and go ahead and let them have it?" And my comment back to them was, "Yes, absolutely. Better late than never. We just need Virginia, Missouri, Kentucky added onto the list. Get rid of all the scalawags, the carpetbaggers, and the illegals, and make sure we get full financial restitution for all the damage that was done during the war and Reconstruction."
Yeah.
I support that, and I like that retroactivity. So you know what? Everything they burned, everything they did, they attacked. We can get that. We can get that back. That all belongs to us.
And every farm they ever seized from a Southerner to give it to these scallywags that fought in their army.
Yep. That's right. 100%. And I think we would see the biggest. We would have the people that were trying to attack our history. They're already moving out. I've known people in Virginia that have left it this year alone, that they're gone because they can't stand it and going to California. You would see people moving away, people moving in. I know for a fact that I would probably be moving to Alabama. Where do you think you would put the new capital for the new Dixie?
I would probably put it in either Atlanta or or I'd probably put it in. I mean, before they moved it to Richmond, wasn't it in Mobile originally, or Montgomery?
Montgomery.
Yeah, Montgomery. Probably put it in Montgomery, or put it back in Richmond.
That's provided we can clean. If we could clean it out, Richmond would be absolutely perfect. Nashville, more central, but I don't think it would have that kind of contingency to be able to support all that. Nashville being more central. And for our national flag, my own personal opinion would be the third national, because that is the flag that was never surrendered.
Yeah. Yes.
Or the third national with a few more stars added. And don't forget too, we would claim Oklahoma as well.
Yes, we would. Indian Nation would be ours.
Yeah.
And theirs to self-govern the way they see fit, which was originally the plan of the South, because the 5 civilized tribes were getting representation in government, and they were treated the best under the South, compared to after the war between the states. What did they do to them? They took away their heritage. They forced them to have the federal flag instead of their cultural flags. They took all their heritage away from them and, quote, forced them to be what they thought was their idea of an American. And that was something that was done on the South on a greater scale.
And didn't they put them in these schools?
They did. Carlisle, Pennsylvania was one of the most notorious. Carlisle has over 200 something Native American children that died there because they were taken away from their families, put on these buses, forced to have beliefs that weren't theirs. Well, before the South respected that. The South respected them to do whatever they saw fit as their tribe. And that was all taken away from them under General Sherman, as well as President Grant. And that is something that what I love is, because I'm under the impression that, you know what, they want to attack our memorials. And we've seen this time and time again. Well, guess what? All these union groups, they have nowhere to talk about that, because guess what? A lot of their generals attack the natives. And you saw Custer, how he committed war crimes against the tribe. Tribes aren't hurting no one. He goes in there and starts killing them left and right. They fight back. And you see how the Republicans and all them kind of just sweep that under the rug. Like, oh, no, nothing to see here, folks.
Done.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is always there with the other side.
It is.
They come after ours, but they want to whitewash over their own history.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like when Lincoln hung the Lakota Sioux that
Yes.
rebelled.
Yes. And he sent the Buffalo Soldiers to kill the natives. And that was something that if y'all ever watch the news on Minnesota, here's what's so ironic. Their flag was a Yankee Regiment flag. That was a historic flag. And hey, that's their state's history. They deserve to keep that. However, Minnesota also stole, and they will not give back, our Virginia flags. They're not on display. They still have. I was ready to go out there and like picket if I had time during my residency. I did leave a battle flag and First National flag at the Mary Tyler Moore statue, because she is related to a Confederate general. She is a third great granddaughter, and that was the only
descendant of President Tyler too.
I don't think so. I could be wrong on that. Maybe she might be related somehow, but not to my knowledge. I would have to look deeper into that. But
you mentioned earlier the Stonewall Jackson headquarters museum in Winchester. That was her family that owned that place, and Mary Tyler Moore is responsible in large part for having that place restored for the UDC.
Yes, it was.
And yes, the last Confederate general to surrender was a Native American. It was Stan Waddy, who my ancestor fought under at the Battle of Cabin Creek with General Richard Montgomery Gano.
And she's a descendant, Mary Tyler Moore, of Confederate Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Tillman Moore.
Yep.
And there's another one she's related to, I believe, somehow. She's got a great family pedigree and always was big on our culture and our heritage. She never denounced it, to my knowledge. So I left those 2 flags at her memorial that is in Minnesota in honor of that. And Minnesota, again, they are too busy virtue signaling and tearing stuff down. And I spoke to somebody in Minnesota, and he laughed and said, Minnesota doesn't care about history. They just bulldoze and build new. And that's something they do all the time there. So in Minnesota,
and it's sad too. It's these new buildings. Yeah, like look at these. Every time I get on Facebook and I see these old photos from 1900, these buildings, these beautiful architectures, and they're bulldozed and replaced with block buildings. And it's the same with Germany too. Like the stuff that's replaced with after that's been dozed. I'm like,
everything looks so blah, just absolutely
yes,
blah.
yes. There's a lack of culture, lack of architecture that screams who you are locally. Like
That's right.
like one time in my town, they dozed two buildings and put a coffee shop at one of them, and I'm like, and
All that for a cup of
and
coffee.
and we already had 3 coffee shops. Why would we need a 4th? Why another overpriced $7 a cup coffee when I can pay a similar amount for the grounds and make my own dang coffee and
get better coffee from the Confederate Coffee Company.
Yes. I mean, I buy the 5-pound bag, and that lasts me for months.
I still have a lot left from I got for Christmas. My Graham got it for me. The box that had all the stuff on it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And to that point, on that subject of Minnesota, what they did was they were honoring the Buffalo Soldiers, and that was a point to virtue signal. So they left out the fact that that prison was a Confederate prison. They also left out the Buffalo Soldiers killed Native Indians. So it was so interesting. And I'm just like, they tell these half-truths and they leave all this stuff out, and there's all this virtue signaling. And when they were talking about the state flag, a lot of the Republicans didn't care, and the Democrats were like, change it. We'll make it the flag of Somalia, which is pretty much what they did.
Yeah.
And let's see. Miss Lisa says, just like my family doesn't care, and I do as a third great granddaughter of General Thomas Merla Logan, the rest of my family is covering it up. I am sorry, Miss Lisa, and never stop telling your truth. Please always get your word out. And Miss Lisa, we're about to wrap up soon too. So thank you so much for joining us and everything that you're doing to fight for our heritage.
Yeah, good.
Good night, Miss Lisa.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. So on that note, I think we covered a lot of our bases. We did a great job. On Monday, we're going to be back on Monday. We're going to talk about Peanut the Squirrel on Monday, as well as the raccoon and some other interesting stuff, because I got some cool media tips on what happened at the New Jersey Education Association meeting. They had drag shows and they had a lot of drinking, and we're going to go in depth on Monday. If y'all are around, we're going to read what they think teachers should know.
Be around Monday.
Somebody who is a former educator and somebody that's working technically in education, it will make your jaw hit the floor and get sick to your stomach.
And hopefully me, who will be working in education.
Yep. And hopefully be the change that we got to see.
And me, who needs a lot of education.
Well,
I need good educators.
Yes, we do.
Well, thanks for having me on tonight, fellas. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
And can we do a birthday shout out, Tom?
Yeah, we can do a birthday shout out. Thanks, Vinny. A big shout out to my mama. She had her 79th birthday yesterday, and she has been behind me in my fight to honor our Confederate heritage 130% or more. I mean, just she was the one who encouraged me to seek out and join the Sons of Confederate Veterans, to stand up for our heritage and our ancestors who fought. And I remember when I took her to her great-great-grandfather's grave for the first time, and I wanted to get a picture holding the battle flag, so she takes the picture. I said, well, do you want your picture at the grave? She says, yeah. So she goes and she stands over there, and she's like, well, are you going to give me the flag? I got to have the battle flag. Yes. And just recently, we were having a conversation, and unfortunately, everyone's appointed a time to die according to the Bible. And she even said to me that when her time comes, she doesn't want any other flag. She wants the Confederate battle flag draped over her casket. So my mama's a hardcore Confederate supporter, and big shout out to her. I love my mama. Happy birthday, Mom.
I love you, Mama McLean.
You know who your mom reminds me of, dude?
Who's that?
Harry S. Truman's mother.
Yeah.
who absolutely refused to stay in the Lincoln bedroom and is still angry at the Yankees that took her family's spoons.
Yep. My mom's a fighter, that's for sure.
I love Mama McLeese. She is funny as all heck. She knows how to defend the heritage. She's always down to earth. She's a great Christian lady, and I am so proud that she is not afraid of them colors. She's like, no, these are my colors. And she makes me laugh all the time like John does. You get the funny gene from her.
Yes, I most certainly do.
Both y'all are jokesters.
That's very nice of you, Vinny. Thanks for letting me do that.
You're welcome. All right, y'all. So I'm fixing to wrap this up. What do y'all say?
Well, stay unreconstructed and Deo Vindice, y'all, and stay safe.
Deo Vindice.
God bless Dixie, y'all, and Deo Vindice. To better days.
Yes.
And we will see y'all soon on Monday.
We'll see you Monday, y'all.
Later on.